Okay, picture our planet suspended in the deep silence of space, a fragile, totally interconnected blue marble. Now, I want you to imagine a thought experiment so terrifying, so absolutely absolute that it completely challenges our very comprehension of destruction. Welcome to today's explainer. We're mapping out a true global inferno. We're going to use scientific projections to visualize the absolute worst-case scenario for Earth. Basically, we're looking at a completely hypothetical, yet incredibly scientifically grounded cinematic journey into the darkest possible timeline.
So let's just dive right in. What would actually happen if all the nuclear bombs on Earth exploded at the exact same time? To answer that, we're going to begin a chronological journey, exploring step by step the incredibly fragile interconnectedness of our global climate and our food systems. Because you see, we aren't just looking at the initial blasts here. We really need to unpack the devastating long-term domino effect that inevitably follows an event like this.
Section 1. The Global Arsenal and the Spark.
Right now, scattered across continents, sit literally thousands of nuclear weapons. Thousands. Each one inherently capable of causing absolute planetary devastation. Imagine for a second, thousands of these missiles launching and detonating all at once. Bright, blinding flashes suddenly cover many different parts of the globe simultaneously. This isn't just some localized, isolated event, right? It's a massive, coordinated planetary spark that fundamentally alters the surface of the Earth in just a fraction of a single second.
Section 2. The immediate destruction. Once that spark is actually lit, the physical reality shifts instantly. The energy released is completely chaotic, fiercely intense, and moving at just unimaginable speeds. Step 1. Massive shockwaves instantly destroy nearby cities, acting almost like a planetary-scale earthquake just tearing through concrete and steel. Then, Step 2 follows in mere milliseconds, as entire buildings simply collapse, totally flattened by the sheer, unyielding kinetic force. And finally, Step 3. Huge mushroom clouds rise violently into the sky, pulling the vaporized debris of human infrastructure miles and miles up into the air.
And the human cost of those 3 catastrophic steps? Well, it's measured in the millions. The grim reality here is that millions of people would die instantly. And that's just from the initial sheer force of the shock waves and the unimaginable heat of the blasts. But the devastation doesn't stop with the explosion itself. Almost immediately, deadly radiation begins spreading outward across the world, creating these invisible, highly lethal zones that extend way, way beyond the initial blast radiuses.
Section 3. The Nuclear Winter. Now the true global threat pushes upward into our choking atmosphere. These localized explosions are basically mutating into a full-on planetary climate crisis. The intense heat from thousands of simultaneous explosions spark Step 1. Huge fires that spread across entire continents. We're talking forests, cities, plains, literally everything burns. This immense burning leads directly into Step 2, where unimaginable volumes of thick smoke and dust are thrown high up, completely covering the global atmosphere, which directly triggers Step 3. Because the sun is now blocked by this massive barrier of ash, temperatures plunge worldwide.
Sunlight becomes critically weak. Now, I know it sounds incredibly simple, almost quiet even, but it signifies the beginning of a dark, freezing epoch for our planet. Thick, impenetrable black smoke just blankets the Earth. That bright, life-giving sun becomes really nothing more than a dim, distant smudge in the sky. The entire planet is plunged into a chilling, global, nuclear winter. It's this eerie, incredibly somber reality where the basic warmth and light we take for granted every single day are simply gone.
Section 4. The Long-Term Aftermath.
Zooming out from those initial weeks of fire and darkness to a macro level, we start to see a secondary biological collapse driven entirely by that freezing cold and total lack of sunlight. The bombs have long since stopped exploding, but the disaster is very much still unfolding. Without the sun, crops fail. Because crops fail, global food production drastically decreases. This directly and unavoidably results in catastrophic global food shortages. Ultimately, the survivors of the initial blasts and the spreading radiation, both animals and humans, are left in a desperate, ongoing struggle to simply survive against starvation in an incredibly barren world.
It's honestly jarring to contrast the sheer, instantaneous violence of the spark with the grim, exhausting reality of the years that follow. On one side, we have the spark, characterized by immense, terrifying energy, instant flashes, collapsing cities, and massive shockwaves. It's incredibly violent and happens literally in the blink of an eye. Contrast that with the situation years later, where we see deeply damaged ecosystems, a drastically reduced human population, and an ongoing, daily fight for the absolute bare necessities of life.
So the crucial takeaway here is that the initial explosions are truly just the beginning of a relentless cascade. We move from the instant horror of the explosions and shockwaves right into the short-term suffocation of widespread fires, smoke, and nuclear winter. And then we finally settle into the long-term reality. Years and years of damaged ecosystems and extreme scarcity. It's an unbreakable chain of environmental and biological consequences where one disaster absolutely guarantees the next.
This brings us to a profoundly sobering conclusion from our source material. Life on Earth would continue, but human civilization would face one of its greatest disasters. The planet itself, the actual rock spinning in space, would endure in some form. Biology is surprisingly resilient. But the complex, thriving, highly structured civilization we've built up over thousands of years, it would be fractured beyond recognition. That is the true, lasting cost of this hypothetical doomsday scenario.
So, knowing this fragile cascade of consequences, how precarious is the balance of our interconnected world? It's a question that really lingers long after the imaginary smoke clears. This explainer reveals just how deeply our global climate, our food systems, and our very survival are tied together. One massive disruption cascades into total system failure. It absolutely leaves us pondering the profound fragility of our planet and just how deeply interconnected our Earth truly is.